Just 2 seconds here. All right. Hi everyone, welcome to this Tech Thursday webinar. Today our topic would be using Office 365 Planner as a project manager productivity tool. We have had several members express interest in hearing about this topic, and we got a great speaker today to talk about this topic, a very good friend. So before I get into all that, a few ground rules. So as if you do not know, every third Thursday of every month, we do this Tech Thursday webinars where we focus on technical topics that are on project manager tools. Um, these webinars are eligible for technical PDU codes, and then we will be able to we will give you the PDU code towards the end of this presentation. If you want to ask a question, you can either use the chat option or the Q&A option. Either one are fine. I will play the host and I will read out your questions for Tim to answer in between or towards the end of the presentation. And finally, this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available on our chapter YouTube channel. And there is going to be a survey towards the end of this presentation, and that you can use that to uh, provide feedback on what you would like to hear. Tim also actually provided a copy of his presentation. You see the link over there. We will make sure that is also included in the emails you will get after this presentation is done. Okay. Without further ado, let me introduce Tim. As I said, Tim is first of all, a very good friend. We know each other from the Microsoft project community. Um, he's a very well-known name in Microsoft project and program and portfolio management world. I mean, many of his articles, many of his blogs, videos are very helpful. And what makes Tim different is he focuses on the big picture, not worried about the every click and command in the tool, but how does it all tie into the bigger picture, which is what I think everybody is looking for. So I will not steal Tim's bio from him, so I will let him introduce himself. So Tim, take it over.
Sounds good. Well, do you want me to share my screen now? I think that'll probably
Sure.
be the.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. Do I get to pick? Let's pick the whole screen here. There we go. All right. Hopefully that works. And again, Prasanna, thank you very much for the opportunity to just kind of reach out and share what's going on in the project management technology world. It's a lot of fun. Certainly doing technology in today's day and age. I think you're going to find there is a lot going on, and no longer is it just one tool anymore. It's many, many pieces that go together. We call that the better together story. And what's interesting about that is I started down the technology path in the project management world because everyone does projects and everyone uses tools. They just don't put them together very well, and that's kind of where our sweet spot. So I've been doing this for close to 27, maybe a little 28 years. And run a gold
Tim, I don't
certified
think
partner.
you're sharing your screen. Sorry.
Is it not showing again?
Yeah.
Let's try it one more time. Oh yeah, I got to click twice there. This is where I use Microsoft Teams most of the time, but Zoom, great tool. And as you can see here, I'll talk about my background in just a moment, but been doing this a long time, a lot of fun. It's always fun to watch the trends and where this comes. So I want to make one quick announcement. Is that if you are looking for free PDUs, which people get really excited about, for the last 5 years, every other Wednesday, we actually record a free training on stuff like Word, PowerPoint, SharePoint, Microsoft, non-Microsoft. We talk about how project program and portfolio management is infused with that. So we actually do this and we put it up onto our website. We also put them out onto YouTube. But our PDUs, there's like half a PDU for these 30-minute slots. Are out there. And then we now put them all on our on-demand academy. So now we can actually kind of quickly get those registered and PDUs over to folks. As you know, technology keeps changing, so we want to keep that out there. So just from me to you, and by the way, share this with anybody. We don't care. It's really more about giving back to our community of practice and working from there. Prasanna said, I've been in the industry a long time. I have written lots of books. Again, I'm passionate. I love teaching. And I'll tell you what, this whole COVID lockdown is just driving me nuts because I just want to sneak out and meet with customers. But in many cases, we can't. So that's where we have to look at how do we be productive and how do we make these transitional changes. And the thing about technology is it's not just about a tool, it's what the tool can do for you. And for me, it wasn't just what the tool could do, but more about what can the data give you? How does it transform organizations? So I have an esteemed colleague, Prasanna will keep me honest about what I can say and what I can't say about what's going on with Microsoft and the next few releases. But there's a lot of things that are exciting that are coming, and the cadence is actually very quick. So before we jump into the presentation, I want to just talk about where we at in the world today. And today I'm in Portland, Oregon, which is in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. However, I have some pictures of what it actually looks like today. So this is one of the bridges in downtown Portland. This is actually what it looks like today with all the fires that are going on. And suddenly people are going, what in the world is happening here? This is just like apocalyptic. It's very different. So here's another picture of what's called the Hawthorne Bridge, a little snapshot of downtown. And here's exactly what it looks like today, which is interesting because look at the guy on the paddle board in the middle of the river who's still, a little bit crazy going out there and in this time and do it. But I think you're going to find that, in life and in project management and all the things that we do, in many cases, you have to be adaptive, right? You really have to be in a position that says, maybe this tool worked yesterday, it's not going to work tomorrow. Or as we look at our culture, we have to figure out what it is. And there's a phraseology that's out there is this, what got you here today won't get you there tomorrow. And I think that's important as we look at how we still execute in, these VUCA environments where it's volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, all these crazy things that are happening is how do you adapt and how do you expand your tool sets to make that work? So today we're going to talk a little bit about the direction of where Microsoft's going with project technologies. That's a broad brushstroke now. It used to be just like, oh, hey, it's only Microsoft Project or Project Server. Very different now. We'll talk about the life cycle and how Planner fits there. And then we'll also walk into some industries trends. And, I just can't resist not doing a live demo. So I'm going to get in and show you some advanced techniques, some approaches that may help you really rapidly do a good job at the same time reduce the overhead of perhaps maybe what you're doing. And this is something that a lot of customers in our world are embracing globally in terms of how you put things together. So as we go from here, there's a lot of project management tools kind of popping up on the screen. You'll see open source, you'll see Monday.com, you hear about Jira, you talk about Azure DevOps, you talk about the new versions of project. There's a lot of things that are going on. And you kind of go, another silver bullet. Really, who's flying this plane? Is there a method to the madness? And I will say that while we may be watching the maturity or the immaturity of project management technologies, Planner came out, Office 365 Planner came out with a very specific mission, and it has been delivering 100% and more in how that works. So if we think about Planner itself as a technology, both Prasanna and I were there when it was unveiled, and we all looked at each other and went, how do we sell this thing? Because it's free, it's simple, is it going to help? Oh, it's got some agile pieces to it. And Microsoft has continued to kind of use this as an element to wrap into other areas. You're going to hear how important it is in what we're going to be talking about as work and task management. So right now there are millions of users daily using it. It's the #1 app that's added in Microsoft Teams. And if you guys can't imagine now with Zoom and Teams and other online meeting forums and collaboration portals, people are all over that. And so I think Teams, this week just hit like 200 million users in a single day. It's crazy about what's there. But the idea that Planner has to be able to deliver maybe scalable to millions of records means that they engineered a very different type of database system, but put it into the same functionality that you're going to find with teams and groups. There's a security model that's really easy to manage and maintain. And so overall, the idea is that there's this integration between some of the tools and how they work. And of course, while Planner is going to continue to get new features, they're not going to suddenly make it do something that it wasn't intended to do. That's when you say, you know what, when I'm picking a tool, like picking a group, like I need a hammer. Well, what kind of hammer do you need? It does make a difference, because if truly you're going to, hang a picture up on your wall, you probably won't use a sledgehammer for that, right? The idea is we're going to pick the right tool for the job and make sure that that's in place to work with. So, interestingly, the intent, of course, Planner and its charter really is to be simple, organized experience for an end user. And that's really important because as we look at the millennials, the generation X, Y, and Zers, this new workforce that's emerging, and baby boomers who are possibly going out and then again coming back into the workforce, is that they just want to make sure that it's not going to be complex. I got to be able to do it from my phone. So it's got to be familiar, collaborative, and really kind of follow some of the trends that we're seeing in terms of how to quickly manage activities. And of course, fast visual stats, hence the reason for a very different type of backend database that allows you to really pivot information much faster and quicker with Planner. So when we think in terms of some of that overall big picture and the direction of all these different pieces, the idea of that task management, work management, project program, and portfolio management are all different disciplines. In a sense, they're all cousins, but they are different. And so if I'm doing just quick task management, here's all the little things I got to get done today. Oh, yeah, by the way, I got to stop by and get my dry cleaning. Or, hey, listen, I need to actually go to the store and pick up some things. Those are all tasks. But then we might come together as a team to do work management. And the question usually resides is, do we put all of the work management deliverables into a big scheduling technology with predecessors and successors, and we're doing earned value reporting? Maybe that's overkill. And so understanding when to pick that right tool will be important for you guys as you kind of go forward and you look at some of the pieces that are in place. So again, key directions for Office 365 Planner is that in many cases, as we've been working in the type of tools that we're referencing, is that Outlook has always been there. You've had tasks where you can create little task list. People certainly have used Project Desktop since 1994, 5, and 6, and the DOS versions when they first acquired it and brought it in, and Microsoft started making it available into the Windows world. And certainly, in the early 2000s, moving into a SharePoint server-based environment. But we think in terms of SharePoint task lists. Now people are tracking things there. Wunderlist as a mobile app, which is now something called Microsoft To Do. And then you've got this planner tool. And so there's this cadence around, hey, there's a need, there's an itch that perhaps may not being scratched by what's happening here. And so as the technologies in the project management world fit, Planner has a very important role for us to work with. So I feel like I jumped over something. Let me double check real quickly here. Yep, no, we got it. Just want to make sure I don't miss any fun stuff here. So as we get into kind of the overall direction in terms of project and a life cycle, so where and how does Planner fit in a life cycle? I think the right question to ask is, what are we trying to accomplish? So if you think in terms of, key questions to ask yourself, which is, well, who would need task or work management, right? When would they need that versus a project management tool? Who, what, where, when, and why, right? So, what is the right tool to manage tasks and work? Is it a notepad on your desk? Is it that Excel spreadsheet that everyone keeps passing around? Is it your Outlook calendar, right? What are the ways that you're kind of managing it, and what is the right way to make that happen? And then, of course, where does managing these tasks and deliverables fit in getting an overall project done? Because in many cases, a project isn't comprised of just, key deliverables and, big picture items. In many cases, there's a lot of small moving parts. And so figuring out what that looks like. As a side note, when they just Microsoft began working on Planner, they were out studying the industry. And what they found was financial teams like the accounting office that would do year end closeout, or marketing teams were doing these quick turn projects all the time. In fact, they call them Q-tips, these quick turnaround projects. And there's lots of activities, but they wouldn't use Microsoft Project. And so you're thinking, well, if that's too heavy of a tool, something that helps people keep track of what gets done, who's doing it, but what's necessary around that had to be solved. And simple lists are great, but boy, putting in a database that you can mine it, chart it, you can do workflow, other elements is important as well. So again, when should you use a work management tool versus a project management tool? And again, all of these should be asked, and that should lead you to an answer, which is this right? Is why should I perhaps use Planner? Is it the right fit for what you're trying to do? So again, theoretically, in some of the leveraging pieces in terms of Planner, is first of all, it's free if you're in Office 365. I think there is a license for it's like the home user Office 365 license. It's really a weird license I found that didn't have Planner natively, but every other E1 license and above, Planner is just free. It's there as a work management, task management technology that's available, but it is strategically placed to work in many different places. So the overall idea is that it shouldn't matter what methodology. Are you waterfall? Are you agile? Are you doing Prince 2? Well, what we're giving you is something that's a little bit more flexible in terms of keeping track of things. And then the idea is that you're blending that task and work management with perhaps you or a team or a group. And then again, it's easy to manage and clone. In fact, I'll demonstrate some of these today. Um, the bigger solution is what we call the grow up story, is that maybe you start in Planner and then maybe you need to actually migrate into a bigger project, or maybe you have both running in parallel, but we don't want to do duplicate effort. And again, that's a key strategy that we'll talk about how people approach blending those pieces together. And again, the idea is that it just needs to be productive. What am I doing? When's it due? Who's doing it? I've got comments, notes, threads, documentation, and boy, I sure want to do a little sorting and grouping of that information. So all of these things in a bare essentials really fits in that Office 365 planner environment. Now, this picture shows you on this slide here of kind of the ecosystem of some of the technologies, at least the Microsoft side. And there's some stuff down there. We talk about Alexa, Cortana. We can talk about other products that might be in use. But the overall idea is that work and task management really follow the lines, right? We say, hey, there's this task thing that's going on, kind of like Microsoft To Do might be connecting those, but we may want to route that through team into Planner. Notice everything on the left kind of funnels and feeds right into Planner. And then Planner allows you to begin bridging the conversation. Is it project online, Azure DevOps? Is it in SharePoint? And what's coming, I think October 1, we're going to hear about the announcement of what's called project operations in Dynamics, which will allow you to integrate both scheduling technology into like CRM. So there's this convergence of these tools. Planner sits in a very pivotal place for people to be able to use and manage those different pieces. So continuing that trending story, right? And in terms of what does it look like if you starting to blend these technologies together? And so you might have a little of this and a little of that, but boy, I don't need all of one or the other. I need kind of a hybrid. This is a great place to see how does Planner fit in that work management. So the trends in the industry today, we're talking about global trends, worldwide trends, things that we see. Still, people use Excel. That is the number one project management tool worldwide. And what's interesting is if you ever have had licensing discussions between the different teams at Microsoft and other organizations, the idea is they want to put better features and better tools out there so people will buy a license. Well, if everybody on the planet is using Excel, then internally at Microsoft, they begin looking, well, how do we either compete with Excel or how do we differentiate when that grow up story may be that says, well, Excel, you can do all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't do these things. And this may be when you need to step over to something that may give you more value. People worldwide using SharePoint task lists. They use Outlook task lists, kind of tracking that. If you haven't heard of Microsoft To Do, that really is free. Don't even need Office 365 to use that. But the idea is a lot of these Jira, Azure DevOps, suddenly we're starting to talk about work, task management, and then project program and portfolio management. So in the different tools in the trends of where people are going, they're looking for when do I break it off between one tool and go to another, or we call that best of breed. Let your developers work in their Azure DevOps environment. But boy, what I want to be able to do is for the rest of the collaboration that's going on is people don't need a license to go in there. They just need to make sure they have something that we can keep track of and keep in parallel. And so that bridging of some of the technologies you'll find with Power BI reports or workflow, but Planner is an easy tool to collect and distribute information. And we're going to see a little bit more about that. And of course, the collaboration tool that seems to be king today is Microsoft Teams. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, just said Teams is how things gets done. So if we're talking about getting things done and we're using a work management tool, it would make sense to embed that directly into a Teams environment. And I'll give you a little example of that today, which is very easy to do. Again, much used in all the different environments people go to, is finding the balance between, hey, my team likes to go to one place to see that. So again, the overall idea in terms of trends in the industry is simple, easy, get in, get out, get back to work. But there is an accountability factor. Because if everybody's keeping their lists on their desks or in spreadsheets in different places, there's no one version of the truth that you can go to. Hence, Planner allows you to kind of collect it all, put it in a place, and then tell that story. And I think that's important, is to be able to tell that story and then clone it, rinse and repeat if you're going to do very similar ones, similar activities, similar engagements, and say, you know what, yeah, that fundraiser that we did for our our church or our nonprofit organization that's out there, absolutely, let's just clone that for next year, and I don't want to have to rekey all those things in. And by the way, can I update it on my mobile device? And can I, especially if I'm dealing with an agile or a technical team, have that Kanban-esque view where I've got cards? So Planner has been referenced in terms of some of its fit, is that it's the Craigslist of work management tools. It's free. Everyone seems to be using it, but then how do we use that in a bigger picture to work with portfolio management or program management or different organizations that might be using some of the maybe higher tools, but they have that collaboration piece there. So this is where I like to get into kind of setting up and doing a demonstration for you guys so we can talk a little bit more about this. And I enjoy kind of showcasing a few things here. So let's do this. Let me bring up a browser, and I'm showing you right now something called Project Online, which is the bigger tool where you can put your information in. And of course, the overall idea is that you might be even thinking about, well, maybe I need a scheduling tool, or maybe this is still too heavy with the Gantt chart thing, is that we can drop into Office 365 Planner. So what I'm looking at right now is I'm just showing you something called the Planner Hub. And the idea of a plan is that you can spin them up, you can work with them, you can turn them off, you can make them favorites, but you've got this central view that you can see information, including the fact that if I want to take a plan, I can actually copy this whole plan and pick it up and move it. So you have the opportunity to literally copy a plan and then select a security group if you want to that says, yep, I want to use a different team, or I'm going to carry these activities forward. And what I like about this is you can say, hey, by the way, when I'm carrying it over, don't set all the due dates for me, right? I just want the descriptions, the checklist, the labels, but I don't need anything else outside of that. So again, as you get in there, you can figure out what group that may be, and also saying, hey, listen, I'm doing a lot of these. Let's just make quickly a team, and we'll actually span up a security group and a planner board for each one of these. So inherently, you've got a place to view those. And of course, you actually can bring to bear many different types of plans and visualize those. And I'm going to drill into one right now and just say, yep, if you come in here, you notice that we have, color coding by priority. I put lots of fun pictures in mine. Sometimes I like to show a dashboard or a chart, but inherently you've got members and groups. But the view here is really cards, right? We're talking about taking a card, picking up, dragging and dropping it. Whether I do that with a mobile experience or I do it directly with a mouse, the idea is I've got information I can work with. Again, also coming in here is you've got charts that give you an idea of how you're doing. So again, from a work perspective as a PM, I just may want to come in and say, well, I don't have time to build a Power BI report. I just want to come in here and take a look. How are we doing? And then the ability up here to group the information, maybe by due date, is helpful, or by labels. And we'll talk about using labels a little bit differently today. But the idea is I need a way to parse and group things by high priority. If I want to collapse and expand these and say, well, that's a label, low priority. Well, buckets could be by priority. So we have these dimensions to what we call slice and dice or group or ungroup information. But again, viewing in a bucket list here, I can actually kind of see what's happening. And then obviously we could drop right into schedule. So you can pick different years. You actually can load information and work from this type of view. But all behind the scenes is it's capturing and collecting that information for us. I like also the ability for you to apply your filters. So in many cases, if you have big boards and there's a lot of details there, you can actually start kind of finding what is it that we're looking for. So in this case, I might say I'm looking for security. And as I start typing secure, or if I come back in and say, hey, I need support, I can actually have it find that information by actively filtering. Now, I know I can talk about certain things, but there's things I can't share. And so I've seen a posting where people say, I really would like Planner to actually have like a spreadsheet view where I could come in and just kind of peruse in all the columns that we have. Those kind of things are on the roadmap and are going to be very helpful. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean you can't still treat this like a database itself. Now, in thinking about just this one board, maybe the conversation for your team might be, hey, listen, I actually need to look at all my tasks, regardless of how many planner boards or how many team organizations have spun up a planner board and folded me into. And so, what you can do here is you can do the same thing. Here's the group by progress. I can certainly group it by due date. I can group by certainly the plans themselves, or I can actually go and see each of these planner boards and find out where are the tasks that I've been assigned to. And again, same with that filter here. Some of the same mechanisms that you might use locally, you can certainly use them up above. And as I go through here and just say, hey, listen, let's just kind of group by progress, where are we at? I can flip that over to my charts to say how many things are started, in progress, or late. And as I drill into building, I'll build you a planner board and show you how easy it is to work with. It's all there, but that's it. The mechanisms are the same, whether it's one board or outside of that. And certainly, again, we talk about that schedule, which says I can actually come in here and visualize some of the updates. Now, these things are going to tie into Outlook, and I actually have to go dig up a couple emails. I'll bring them over so you can see those. But there's a lot of communication that says some people still use their Outlook rules to communicate and track for updates. We're going to talk about inverting that, where if you put something in an Outlook task, it actually will flow into kind of your planner board, or at least how you're visualizing your details. And again, I like as I come in here, I'm looking at some of the visualizations that we have in terms of a plan and plan activities. So again, lots of details, can scale to many, many, many hundreds, if not thousands and millions of records. And that's the idea, is to have this very much very simple schema that you can work with. But the idea is that this is where people come in. And you simply add them as a member. You can add them to a task. You can type them in. You can draw. You can invite people from external in your organization. If your global administrator has made that available, sometimes they don't. So you can't invite people from the inside or from the outside in. But these are all things that you can look at what works well for you. And again, expanding and collapsing, completed or uncompleted, is just a matter of just dragging and dropping these. Now, when I get into doing a little bit of building, I'm going to show you some techniques that people are thinking about in kind of the world of how these fit together. But before I drill back into like detailed key features in Planner, I'm going to show you a couple big picture items. Number one is, let me bring project here. And I'm going to show you the idea of, hey, listen, we've all built schedules and maybe you've used Microsoft Project before, but the intent is that, hey, listen, maybe I don't need to put everything into a project schedule. Now, if you look closely, I'll kind of zoom here. On the far left, you'll notice that I've taken some of these summary tasks and said, you know what, maybe I don't need to put all the details because I have a full-blown planner board somewhere else that I can quickly go and check on, or I can visualize and see what's actually happening there and manage that. You'll notice even on the task tab and then on the right here, you've got a ribbon, is that you can actually connect your planner board to your task. And so as I look at these, I might have, hey, listen, I've got a planner board for this biothermal. Let me just go quickly click on it and have it jump me right there. Notice it just took me right to that planner board. If I want to view the information, like for example, if I say, hey, listen, I'm looking at Planner and all the things that we're working with, basically I have these links. So here's to one plan, by the way, and if I come down here, here's to another one. So inherently, as you might have a higher level schedule that maybe you're doing cost modeling, you're doing maybe big epics and releases, and you're looking at the overall level of effort, and you're doing demand and capacity planning. But boy, all the things that you need to manage on a regular ongoing basis, this might be too much overhead. Or perhaps you don't want to buy all the licenses to make people jump in and timesheet in this environment, but I do need to give them the ability to say, listen, I can bridge the gap and have somebody come in here and kind of manage the work in a planner board. And so a lot of organizations are looking at it going, you know what, we do have a need for a project or project for the web or project online. But boy, I don't necessarily need to do all my work there. In fact, it's more productive for people to do things that they can just quickly get in and get out. And so they're reevaluating how that structure might fit and might help you is going to be important. Now, continuing forward, let's talk about taking Planner a little bit more into a breakout here. Let me drop into a single plan here. So I've got one here called PMI Advanced Uses of Planner. Notice there's a little star. So if I want to make this part of my favorites, I can click it or unclick it and have it appear. And you'll notice it'll show up here on the left-hand side. And as I begin to put in some tasks, the concept that we're finding that's really productive is that, remember, it's a database, right? We want to be able to sort, filter, and group the information. But at the same time, we don't want to add a ton of columns to your activities. So if I drop in here and say, hey, I've got to create a project schedule, notice I just say, what bucket does it belong to? What's the progress? Notice it's not asking for percent complete. It didn't ask for how many actual hours that you're trying to put in here. It's really intentional to say, give me a quick updated. It's started, it's not started, it's done, right? And the idea is that you can set up that cadence of how you want to organize by priorities, as well as the ability to set when does it start and when is it due. And by putting due dates here, let me put one for earlier this week. You'll notice here on the left, it's just red flagged it. So we can begin to see visualizations of that information. And of course, if you want to look at, the pictures and graphics and documents that you can load in here, you absolutely can. So again, clown meat, it does taste funny. So this is one of the attachments that we could tell the story with inside of the overall card that we're working from. Now, remember, we're talking about the ability to group here. So we've got these buckets at the top, which are very helpful. But the idea of a bucket or another way to group information sits whether you want to do sprints. And you might say, here's the backlog, sprint 1, 2, 3. Some people put dates on their sprints. You could have a series of releases or priorities. Again, I try not to mix and match all these. I find what is the buckets that I can drag and move these cards around to be easy to do. And if I want to just go add a task here, for example, perhaps I want to do validate dashboards with execs, and I just keep typing and hitting enter. I can go through here. I can open up that activity and decide, maybe I don't need that on that bucket, or if I want to put these, I can also create little checklist. And what I like about checklist is that instead of you actually being in a position where I have to put all these cards in there, is that group them like a summary task and say, if I have to validate the dashboards, what do we need to do? So we need to refresh the data, right? If I can spell it, data, there we go. Refresh the data. We're going to go ahead and test the info, schedule the meeting. Here we go, schedule the meeting, and get feedback summarized. Now, it may be that as you're working in here and you realize that I actually want to take one of these and promote it to its own card, like get feedback summarized. If that's what I want to do, I can actually take this and delete these or promote that into its own card. And if I close that real here quickly here, there it is. I just kind of took it in out of that checklist and I can manage that. Now, another thing that we're going to see certainly in terms of improvements in Planner is that you notice that we have right now, we have 6 of these labels. Now, we're going to be able to have more labels in the future. This has been a very big request from the engineering team. And by the way, the engineering team that manages project is also the same engineering team that also oversees Planner. And so there is a very close connection and a coupling between these project management teams from the engineering side. So as we look at these labels here, notice I put dev review, exec review, marketing review, customers. These are just other ways for you to group. For example, maybe these are priorities, or these are releases, or these are departments. But the idea is that you can organize with the labels or the buckets how you want to see that information. And as you begin dragging and dropping and moving these around, it's very quick, it's very simple, or just work right here to add your tasks. But now when I say, let's not group by bucket, let's group by the labels. Notice we have, these are the things that the development team need to review. And remember, you might have one to many, right? Normally you have just one bucket, but with a label, something can fit in multiple categories. So again, group by labels. I want to see who's assigned anything. Well, I haven't added anybody to this team, but let's do it. I might do that directly just coming in and saying, I better get feedback summarized. And let's just kind of assign that. So let's type some people in here. I'll put in Ken. And he says, hey, do you want to assign and add that person? You bet. And I'll just kind of do this on the fly. Maybe it's going to be Brian. And let's pick somebody who's going to probably send me an email because they don't normally get assigned stuff. Why don't we do Carla? Carla is our receptionist and marketing coordinator. And so when I add her to things, sometimes she's like, oh my gosh, the president of the company sent me this task. I'm just sitting here doing a demo with you guys. But notice I'm adding them right here, and I can add them to this activity, or I can just come up and then add members to this, but it invites them, gives them access to this. So when you build a plan, you can make it private or public. And if it's private, only people that are invited can actually see these. So again, not to make this duplicative of perhaps what you've seen out there, I've actually created many videos on how to use Planner. I know that there's some things out there, but this is the intent: quick, simple, easy, organized and grouped by labels, by buckets, by information that's helpful for you. And you can kind of manage these. You can mark them done, and you can update them with task and task activities. So again, this is our kind of our task management, work management tool. Now, what we want to think about is, great, I can do that for me, maybe for my team, but how do I perhaps bring some of these pieces together? Maybe talking about carrying these forward. Well, one of the things that you're going to find is, and I'll bring it up here, is that we've actually had people come to us and say, you know what, Tim, we like Planner, but we also like using Project Online. We actually like to go all the way up here, and we have formal project schedules. Can you bridge the gap between these? Will Microsoft actually give you a connection between point A and point B? And the short answer is there is intent to take a plan and grow it into this project for the web, right? That's like one step up. We get back into that work management, task management, project program, and portfolio management. Sometimes program and portfolio is much heavier than what we need to do to manage a schedule. So there will at some point be a connection where you can actually grow that up, but there isn't, at least not planned in terms of the conversations that we're hearing, in the idea of taking a planner board all the way into Project Online. Now, here's the thing. Um, we wanted one, so we built one, and we actually have a connector. You can download it or buy it, and that's what my dev team does. Is they find ways to connect the two, and it's very similar to how people use Team Foundation Server, which is, hey, I've got this agile Kanban-esque board area, but I want to synchronize certain information with a full-blown schedule, and I don't want to have to pay for licenses for both. If I've got people in Planner, maybe I just need to refresh key things in the overall environment in a project schedule. So the great thing about Office 365 is they're lowering the barriers to allow you to kind of flow and connect data. That's an example of a connector. But in general, the idea is that this is great, but boy, what if I'm using none of the project, but I'm over here in good old Microsoft Teams? And so if you understand about teams, you can organize things by creating a team or a channel within Teams, and you can kind of organize the information. So by the way, this is just some of the information that we have here. And for example, if I go into professional services, I may want to find a channel that I've got something enabled or turned on. In this case, I've got a Teams demo. But look right here. Hey, I've got files. And when I look at the files, whether I'm doing folders or not folders, or I'm organizing them with metadata content, where does that data live? Where does that actually data get stored? Well, if you look closely here in Teams, it's in what? It's in SharePoint. So think about Planner for a moment, right? Where do those files go? I talked to an executive 2 weeks ago, and he said, I actually had to create a business system and a process and train people that while they're in Planner, working in some of the activities and they add files, that they actually had to go and create a separate directory and store those. And I said, well, did you know when you come up here, not only can you see the files directly, but there they are. And I bet you can't guess where they're at. They're in SharePoint, right? They're sitting there in a SharePoint list. So all the capabilities of your SharePoint environment, your workflow, your version control, your metadata tags are all here ready for you to take advantage of that. And he just was blown away. Like, I had no idea, just thought the files were sitting here and then we had to duplicate them by putting them somewhere else. So the conversation about embedding a planner board inside of a team channel is very simple. Here I am. I just added a tab. In fact, you just click right up here on the little plus, and organizations are saying, great, I love it, but Look at that. Upper left hand corner, number one app added in Teams is Planner. And the idea is that now I don't have to make people hop around. Is that, yeah, I've got my OneNote comments and conversation pieces here. Yep, we do have some of those crazy project managers who really do build schedules and have SharePoint sites where they've got lots of big formal documents there and decision trees. They might even have a full blown project schedule associated to that. And you know what? We can just add these in and make them available. Maybe they have the full blown schedule, but all the details are in Planner. Or maybe you just went this direction and says, I just need to embed my Power BI, and Power BI might be looking at a couple different things. They go to the team, right? They go to the channel. They're going to sit right here and they're going to be able to manage these. And if you don't have a license for project or Power BI, you're not going to see this. Or if you're looking at modern project, or project for the web is really the official name, we just call it P4W, is that, yeah, absolutely. I can just jump right here and I can set these up that, hey, if that information is something I want to work with, then absolutely. If I want to grant people access to my schedule and what we're viewing and managing, sure, you bet. And we can scroll left and right and see kind of these activities. So Teams becomes that hub, right? All the spokes feed into it, including Planner. And what I like about that is that part of your team might be, or your whole team might be working in Planner, and some of them are doing things in other areas. Is that you can bridge the gap between these, and you can do them very quickly and very easily to continue that collaboration and that communication. One of the things that organizations wrestle with right now is they really wrestle with, where does documentation live? Is it in my planner board? Do I have to put it in a formal SharePoint site? Hey, listen, if I've got documentation in a team channel, do I actually have to have it stored somewhere else? Where do they actually need to live? And some of those questions are great to decide. Listen, for most of the working documents, great. They sit there on the team side, or they sit there in the planner board. But we might have formal charters or decisions that need to be made and formalized, and we'll put that in our formal SharePoint site, or we'll do that associated to project. But again, thinking through, how do I help my people continue to be productive, is going to be helpful to manage. So one of those areas that we get into is really just looking at, how do we use the tool? What's the concept for a single use versus a global use? Perhaps maybe we want to put this into a larger picture. And while I bring up my Outlook inbox here, which is kind of fun, is that you can, let me grab, let's grab this here. Bring it up here for just a moment. You'll notice I'm getting this daily briefing from Cortana, right? The idea is that, hey, I was watching your emails and I think these things are tasks. Do you want to add it? Is it done? Is it something I need to track? And if I add it to a to-do list, I certainly can use Microsoft To Do to plan the work activities as I click on something. But notice right here, I can also see that it came from Planner. So you're going to be working in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote. And you might even be in a place that says, you know what, I just want to quickly access communications or emails right against that planner board. And I literally could drop some of these things in here and create in Outlook the ability to add that. But better yet, if you're working in Word and you want to create a task and you say, hey, listen, while I'm reviewing a document, let's just kind of bring this one over here. You're going to be able to say, well, listen, I've got an activity here. And if I want to at mention or highlight and put a comment here, you're going to be able to see very shortly the ability to have these flagged as a task. And that task will be able to set that up in a planner board that says, you know what, around this document or this review, is that we can quickly create a collaborative team that says, we're capturing these tasks, but we didn't even have to lead Word or Excel or OneNote or PowerPoint. We're flagging those. But as a PM, I can take a step back and view and make sure things get done, because we'll funnel that to a team, a group, and a planner board to help you manage some of those. So in big picture, items of things that are there, Planner is designed to really be one of those connecting points that says, we'll help you with task and work management, and perhaps maybe even lighten the load from these bigger schedules that you have in project or other areas, but giving you kind of an agile view to work from. So I've showed lots of things, and just to remind you guys, you can reach out to me anytime. I love to take emails, but I think now, Prasanna, why don't we maybe open it up for questions, and let's see if we can't stump the jocks here.
All right, that was awesome, Tim. We do have one quick question here. Do you have to be using Project for Web to use Planner the way you are showing?
The short answer is no. They're different products, right? So as long as you have an E1, E3, E5 license, I mean, as long as you're in Office 365, you can come in and start using Planner. Do not have to use Project for the Web. If you want to at some point recognize that you have maybe a big planner board that you'd like to migrate up and over into Project for the Web, you can. In fact, the native piece is that there will be a grow up story. It's not turned on yet, but that's important to understand that that is the intent as Microsoft says, hey, listen, we want to run you back through. And in fact, let me bring up that slide here because I think this is really pertinent. Is, you know what, whether it's Outlook or you're doing stuff in a planner board, you have this bridging between task and work management. But at some point, if you do need to migrate up, Project for the Web will kind of sit right here in between the full-blown version of Project, which again will be around for a long time, but you don't have to use that Project for the Web and Planner together. It just is that's the native grow up story. If you need to jump over Project for the Web and go right to this Project Online, we built a connector. If you guys want to spend enough time figuring out how to do it, you can write your workflows and automate the same thing. But the idea is that the barriers in terms of the entire dynamic stack of Office 365 is really making things, more programmatic, much easier to work between the applications. That's a great question.
Okay. Um, the second question is, are you able to add Planner to a private channel in Teams yet?
The answer is not yet, but again, the intent of Planner is to be able to make it accessible. I know that people were struggling in the government cloud. I know some of you guys may be coming from government projects that Planner wasn't available for government cloud for the longest time, and so now it is. So these things are on what they call the internal roadmap of being able to add it, because Planner is designed to be set up. In fact, let me just go to my Teams channels here. That if I want to come in and create a private channel, so for example, well, maybe we'll just do this one here. If I want to manage this channel and I want to set this up, is that you would simply do the same thing and add it. Not turned on yet. And again, I have to keep checking back almost weekly for some of the transitional changes. I do want to say one other thing is that if, for example, let me pop back over here to this channel, is that when I come into Planner and I add it as a tab here, the functionality of what you see kind of in this screen, there are a few things you just can't do that as if you went back to your main Planner hub and you did them here. I can get into kind of a litany of there's little things that there's more menus, there's more options of things to do here. So it doesn't mean that you can't open it up in the Planner hub and work with it, even if you've added to a Teams channel. It just means that in that little tiny window, they haven't put all the same kind of functional elements that you have on the outside, because it's designed to be quick and easy for people to get in and work with. So there is a little bit of a lighter functionality if you're using this view to manage it, but I can certainly go back to this Teams demo or go back to any demo board or Planner board back in the Planner hub and I have full functionality. So it's not like it's not there. It's just in that view. Good question.
Okay. So we have another question. I want to try something different here. So we're going to let the user ask the question themselves.
Very good.
So looking. All right, Rivka, you seem like you have a question.
Sorry, I didn't know exactly how to use this. So this looks very interesting because it's a step down in complexity from Project, but you could use it with Project. It looks really good. My question is there any type of formal training? You're showing us basics on how it looks. It's great, wonderful. But if I wanted to spend a few hours learning how to actually use this program, what's available?
That's a great question. So first off, I would say is that Prasanna is happy to do any call, especially after 3 a.m. in the morning. He's available for no. There's actually a lot of content out on Planner. I mean, if you just want to go to YouTube, if you want to go to our AdvisorCon channel, I have lots of how-tos. I think we used to do like an hour-long training, and I'm like, at the end of an hour, like, what else can I teach? There's not much more I can teach about it. So there's a lot of YouTube how-tos to work through. And so that's one of the great things about Planner is it's designed to be just that quick and simple to pick up. And so I would start there. Outside of it, if you talk about, how do we structure and organize it, these are high level conversations. I would encourage you just to send me an email, send Prasanna an email. We definitely understand, the use of the tool, and we can either point you in the right direction. Happy to give you some answers. We do have organizations that put us on the clock, and they say, hey, listen, what we need to do is figure out all of the tools together, but that's really not training and planner. So
Right.
I would start there. Again, that's the beautiful thing, is that it is designed to be really simple, quick to use, and it doesn't take a lot of uplift to get people working through it.
Terrific. I'm anxious to get started.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for attending. And again, if you have more questions, let us know.
Thank you, Rivka. So Tim, I think as a follow-up to Rivka's question, I think what would be really good is if there is some kind of a best practices. I think the challenge is not how to use a tool, but it's more about what do you use buckets for
Mm-hmm.
versus labels. How do you, if you are doing sprints for and a Scrum planning, what is the right way to kind of arrange your board?
Sure. Let me jump out to there. We can maybe kick that around a little bit. Let's see. Where is my browser? Let's go back here. So, okay. So the way that I set this one up here is right now I've got it grouped by who it's assigned to, but let's just kind of go back up to bucket. What I like to do is I look at least my personal approach, and again, some of my team, they kind of mix and match, is that I use labels for things that have multiple values. Think of it that way. So a lot of times we have priority. It's either low, medium, or high. That sounds to me more like a bucket. Sprints, typically you don't do anything in a sprint, right? You don't have, a task doesn't sit across 3 sprints. It's only in one particular sprint. So think about that construct of how you want to put these in place. I put releases. Some people put epics. For me, it's an outline: epic, sprint, user story. These are just ways to kind of organize information. And you can say, well, my user stories sit above 3 epics, and that gets down to 4 sprints. And, however you want to outline, people mix and match those terms all the time. And I won't get into my agile philosophies here. But again, from an idea of putting a little discipline to this, is I usually just recommend, if you come in here, labels, you can have multiple choices, right? There's multiple selections. And so we don't want to use those. Again, they're a great sorting, filtering, and grouping component. But really the idea is that you also want to present your team the ability to come in and find things. So if you have one really, really long sprint, you're going to be scrolling up and down to view some of that. Prasanna, what are some things that you've done in terms of maybe even organizing, kind of, is it a bucket? Is it a category? Is it a label? What are you doing?
We went a slightly different route, but it aligns with the principles you said. We use labels to indicate the technology that
Mm-hmm.
where that particular card belongs. We use buckets for specific initiatives. Um, Depending on the team, what we do is we use buckets to kind of, we don't have separate plans for separate projects. Sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
gets too cumbersome. So we have all cards in the same plan and then organize them by buckets versus initiatives.
Yep. So if you heard what Prasanna is saying, is that, listen, he's grouping it by technology, perfect for labels, right? Because as you think about it, you might have, this says dev view, exec view. You could say, well, listen, there's actually multiple platforms, infrastructure, database, maybe it touches multiple elements. And again, just think about how you do this. And as a good best practice, I would just recommend jumping out there and build a dummy plan, put 100 tasks in there. I can't wait till they give us the spreadsheet view of Planner, because there's so many more ways to compress all the details. And what's funny is I got a picture of it right next to this other screen I can't show you. But these are exciting things that are coming, because people recognize that there's a lot of information, but try it out. And I don't think it's going to be hard for you to go, this really clearly fits best on how we want to organize it. That's the nice thing about it. It's just quick and easy to set up, beat it up, don't like it, delete it, start it or reorganize it differently.
Okay. I think that's all the questions we had.
Okay, well, let me pop back in here. Let's do kind of we'll call it a summary. And I really think it's kind of fun, because the idea of work, if you think about Tom Sawyer, getting his buddies to come help him paint the fence and then actually pay him to paint the fence, was in the mindset as if work is arduous, if using a project management tool is hard, people won't do it, right? You've got this mentality of, it's got to be quick, it's got to be easy. So if you want to make things done, get them done, make the work seem like it's nothing, or make it fun, gamify it. That's why I love in teaching to put in and weave games and scenarios and things like that. Well, Planner, same thing applies. quick, easy. It should be arduous. Now, there are times that we really do need to use bigger project management technologies, but is that for everybody? That's really kind of the idea of you guys figuring some of that stuff out. So again, Planner itself supports many methodologies, both waterfall, agile. You can look at how is it safe? Is it discipline, agile, and what components go there? Don't care. Back to buckets and labels. How do you want to group that information? And the idea is that there's low overhead for this. It sits on the same security structure that Microsoft Teams is using, literally using that security group format. So you've got something that's already tried and true. It works, and it's also used by hundreds of millions of users in terms of organizing some of that. Again, it's free. Boy, you can't beat that. And there are other tools out there. If you talk about Trello, great tool. Have no issues with any of the technologies that are out there. Just find what works best for your pocketbook, and then again, also look at your culture. That who, what, why, where. That leads into the why should Planner be the right choice for what you're working with. Integrates with Outlook, Office, and OneNote. Again, there's a lot more coming around the integration, and Planner being the collective point that says, you know what, you're working on a document. There's all kinds of things that need to happen. It's a 500-page RFP, and we've got to work on it, put all these things in here. Well, we need a place to put that. We can just collect and capture that right inside of a document into a Planner board. And again, that whole idea is that you can embed it as a team or a team channel. Private channels, some of these things are getting worked on, and trust me, the COVID made a mess of the release schedule of features because the prioritization of making sure that they could scale and provide good performance on just some of the basics. So stay tuned. Q2 for Microsoft, which is usually Microsoft fiscal year starts in July. So July, August, September usually is right after that. Q2 it tends to be a very dynamic month for things that are being added. So I'm hoping this was helpful for you. I really encourage you guys, if you need more of other type of things, certainly reach out. But if you've got questions, we want to encourage that. And again, if you're looking for some free PDUs or just ongoing light touch education, we put that on our website on Thinkific. You'll also find us on YouTube. You can just subscribe to our channel. And we do this free. Share it with anybody. There's PDUs, which is great. But the idea is that there is so much that project managers sometimes have to look at that while you're doing your job, it's hard to be out doing reconnaissance. And Prasanna, as a colleague of mine, we go back to Microsoft and we beat them up based upon things that we know that need to be done. And we kind of represent some of that user voice to the community. But hopefully today was helpful for you. And again, thank you for the opportunity to share. Prasanna, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim, for your time. I know these presentations take quite a bit of time to prepare and deliver. So really, really appreciate you sharing your time with us today. I'm sure the audience was able to take advantage of some of the key pointers you showed about Planner.
Excellent. It was a horrible topic to talk about. You can tell I wasn't very enthusiastic about it, right?
Yeah, Planner is supposed to, I mean, at least based on what I understand, one of the hottest products right below Teams for Microsoft. So
yep, it is.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let me take the screen back. All right. So hopefully you're able to see my screen. All right, so there's the PDU code for today. You will, if you have all the attendees will also receive this code in the email if you fail to capture it. But if you want to take a screenshot of it, great. The recording has been streamed live to our YouTube channel, so it's available right after this meeting. So if you are interested, you can go take a look at it, listen to Tim one more time today itself. With that, I think we are towards the end of our time. Again, Tim, thank you so much, and everybody else, have a great day.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.